Steve Reed, thanks so much for speaking to us this evening. Just to start with, if you don't mind, I'd quite like to play you a interview that Trevor Phillips did this morning with Paul Johnson from the IFS. So I'll just play you a quick clip from his interview.
They don't want to obviously talk about tax increases because that frightens the voters. But they have, as I said, tied themselves to this fiscal rule. Maybe they're just hoping they get lucky, though I have to say, I think on the balance of probabilities, they won't, at least in the first budget, because if anything, the economic forecast that the last budget was based on was pretty optimistic. So what will they do? They're not telling us.
So will you tell us now what you're going to do?
Well, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have been crystal clear all the way through this campaign and way before that. We, as the Labour Party, have no intention to further increase personal taxes, whether that's income tax, VAT, national insurance, on working people, because people are currently paying the highest rates of personal taxation for 70 years, since the end of the Second World War. And we have a cost of living crisis. People simply can't afford to pay any more. Labour's been crystal clear about all the way through this. We have proposals to inject funding into public services where that is required, and we have identified specific tax loopholes that we will close in order to bring that funding in. So closing the non-dom tax loophole, where foreign billionaires resident in this country pay less than the guy that cuts my hair. Closing that loophole will fund 40,000 additional NHS appointments every week. Closing the private school VAT loophole will fund 6,500 additional teachers. Now, these are not easy decisions to take. They're hard decisions, but we'll take them because we know we need to fund failing public services, but we will not further increase personal taxes on working people after the Conservatives landed us with the highest rates for 70 years.
OK, you talked there about two things, non-DOMs and VAT on private schools. The reforms to non-DOM status is expected to raise, I think, £2.6 billion, according to your estimates, and VAT on private schools, £1.7 billion. I'm not saying that's not nothing, but in the grand scheme of things, reforming the NHS, boosting public services, the eye-watering sums you have to pay in compensation to people like postmasters, people impacted by the infected blood inquiry. I mean, those are just a few things. The money that you're talking about is not going to be able to pay for that.
The reason that we as a country are facing these problems with collapsing public services but high rates of tax is because the Conservatives have failed for 14 years to grow the economy. They crashed the economy under Liz Truss. That made things even worse. So growing the economy is going to be key to getting the funding in for the future that we will require. I'll give you one more example.
Can I just say, didn't Liz Truss learn the hard way? You're talking about growing the economy. Didn't she learn the hard way about how dangerous it is to talk about growing the economy without saying how you're actually going to pay for it?
Well, I was just going to come on and say how we're going to pay for it, but it is worth pointing out that Rishi Sunak, who incidentally hasn't been seen on national media for the last 48 hours, Rishi Sunak has so far ratcheted up £71 billion of unfunded commitments in this general election campaign alone. That is more than the level of unfunded commitments Liz Truss tried to force through in her kamikaze budget that crashed the economy and sent interest rates and mortgages and prices in the shops spiralling. The example I was going to give you was actually the windfall tax on the energy and gas giants who are making profits above and beyond what they anticipated making, billions of pounds worth of profits. A windfall tax on that will help establish GB Energy, which will create good jobs up and down this country and help us take back control of our energy so that we can harness the power of wind, wave, solar and nuclear and cut people's energy bills. That puts money in people's pockets as quickly as we can do it. It also makes industry more profitable so that they can invest that money in growing the economy. So we grow the economy. That is how we will generate the revenues we need for the future. For now, we have been crystal clear, no increases in personal taxation on working people because the Conservatives have put it up too much already. Every single commitment we've made is costed and funded, and we don't need to raise taxes beyond that.
OK, can I confirm that, like the Conservatives, there will be 3 years of freezing income tax allowances amounting to an £11 billion tax rise?
As I understand it, that's what Rachel and Keir have committed to, and there'll be more said when the manifesto is published, which I believe is in the next few days.
More taxes.
People are not going to be paying more income tax, VAT, or national insurance if Labour is elected. And the reason is the Conservatives have put it up to the highest rate for 70 years. People can't take any more. We've made
Yes, they are, because
specific
the thresholds
pledges.
are frozen. It's a stealth tax.
These are taxes that the Conservatives have increased. That's how they increased them. If you remember the last budget, they pretended they were cutting tax when really they were increasing tax. Labour won't be increasing tax. We've made specific commitments that are costed and fully funded, and that is how we will get the funding, the first injection of cash into our public services failing under this Conservative government. Education, national health services, and energy. Very big commitments.
Are the thresholds frozen or not then?
There will be no increase in the taxes that working people are paying.
That's not my question, though.
It does answer your question. There will be no increases in the taxes people are paying. I can't make it clearer than that. We will not be charging people more taxes than they're currently paying. We won't be putting up taxes on working people because they're already high enough after the Conservatives put them up 26 times since the last general election, having said they wouldn't.
So the headline rate doesn't change, but what about the threshold?
We have no intention of changing those. There are no plans. There's no need to change those because everything that in our manifesto, as you'll see when it's published in a few days' time, is fully costed and fully funded by closing specific tax loopholes like the non-dom tax loophole and like the private school VAT loophole. There is no need to increase taxes beyond that. There are no spending commitments that would require it.